The blind boy spoke one sentence. And Simon Cowell stood up. America's Got Talent. Dolby Theater. Los Angeles. Another Tuesday night taping. Another packed house. Another lineup of hopeful performers waiting backstage, clutching their dreams, rehearsing their acts one more time before facing the judges. Simon Cowell sat at the judge's desk in his usual position. Arms crossed. Black shirt. That familiar expression of controlled skepticism. He'd seen thousands of acts over the years. Singers, dancers, magicians, comedians. Some brilliant. Most forgettable. A few that changed everything. But he'd never seen anything like what was about to happen. Our next act, host Terry Crews announced, his voice booming through the theater, is 10 years old. He's from Phoenix, Arizona. Please welcome Daniel Martinez. The audience applauded as a small figure walked onto the massive stage. A boy. Maybe 4 feet tall. Dark hair. Simple clothes, jeans and a button-up shirt. He walked carefully, one hand extended slightly in front of him, feeling his way toward the microphone stand. He was blind. The audience's applause softened, replaced by that collective intake of breath that happens when people realize they're witnessing something requiring extra courage. Simon leaned forward slightly, his arms uncrossing. The other judges, Howie, Heidi, Sophia, all shifted in their seats, expressions changing from casual interest to focused attention. Daniel reached the microphone stand and gripped it with both hands, using it to orient himself. He turned his face toward where the judges sat, though his eyes remained unfocused, seeing nothing. "Hi," he said, his voice small but clear through the sound system. "My name is Daniel." "Hello, Daniel," Simon said, his British accent carrying across the theater. "How old are you?" "I'm 10. And what are you going to do for us tonight?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. His hands tightened on the microphone stand. Then he spoke again, and his words would change everything that came after. "Before I sing," Daniel said, his young voice steady despite obvious nervousness, "I need to tell you something. About why I'm here." Simon Cowell has listened to thousands of talents over the years, but none of them started like this. A blind boy spoke, and the single sentence he said forced Simon to stand up from the judge's table. Simon's expression shifted. Something in the boy's tone, that particular quality of someone about to say something important, made him pause. "All right," Simon said carefully. "What do you need to tell us?" Daniel took a breath. "My mom brought me here. She's backstage right now. But she doesn't know I'm going to say this." The judges exchanged glances. The audience leaned forward. Terry Crews, standing in the wings, looked confused. 6 months ago, Daniel continued, his voice starting to tremble. "My mom was diagnosed with cancer. Stage 4. The doctors said, they said she probably has less than a year." The theater went completely silent. You could hear the hum of the stage lights. Someone in the audience made a small sound, half gasp, half sob. Simon's arms uncrossed completely. He placed both hands flat on the judge's desk, his entire posture changing from judge to human in an instant. "She doesn't know I know," Daniel said, tears now visible on his cheeks though his unfocused eyes couldn't see the judge's reactions. "She thinks she hid it from me. But I heard her crying in the bathroom. I heard her on the phone with the doctor. I can't see, but I can hear everything." Heidi Klum put her hand over her mouth. Howie Mandel's eyes were already wet. Sofia Vergara was openly crying. "She brought me here," Daniel said, his small hands gripping the microphone stand so tightly his knuckles had gone white. "Because she wants me to have a dream to hold on to. Something to remember when she's gone. But Mr. Cowell." He turned his face directly toward where Simon sat, as if he could sense exactly where the judge was. "I'm not here for me. I'm here for her. I'm going to sing my mom's favorite song. And I need you to understand something before I start." The boy's voice cracked, but he pushed through. "I don't care if I'm good enough. I don't care if you say yes or no. I just need her to hear me sing this song on this stage, in front of all these people, so she knows that when I think of her someday, I'll remember that I got to do this. That she gave me this. Even if she won't be there to see what happens next." Simon stopped the show. No one knew what was happening. Simon Cowell stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. The kind of standing that makes everyone in a room hold their breath because they know something unprecedented is occurring. "Daniel," Simon said, his voice rough in a way the audience had never heard before. "Hold on one moment." He walked out from behind the judge's desk. The other judges watched him, stunned. The cameras followed his movement. The audience sat frozen. Simon walked to the edge of the stage and looked up at the small blind boy standing under the lights, gripping his microphone stand like it was the only solid thing in the universe. "Daniel," Simon said, and his voice carried through the theater without a microphone. "Where is your mother right now?" "Backstage," Daniel whispered. "In the family room." Simon turned to the wings where Terry Crews stood. "Terry, go get Daniel's mother. Right now. Bring her out here." Terry looked at the producers in the control room, who were frantically gesturing, trying to figure out what was happening. Simon saw their confusion and made a decision that would violate every protocol in the show's format. "I don't care about the format," Simon said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't care about the rules. Bring his mother out here. Now." Terry moved immediately. The audience began to applaud. Not the excited applause of entertainment, but the reverent applause of people witnessing something real. 2 minutes felt like 20. The theater waited. Daniel stood on stage, confusion clear on his young face, not understanding what was happening. Simon remained at the edge of the stage, hands in his pockets, watching the boy. Then Terry returned, leading a woman by the hand. She was thin, cancer thin, wearing a scarf over her head where chemotherapy had taken her hair. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Daniel?" she called out, her voice shaking. "Baby, what's happening?" "Mom?" Daniel's head turned toward her voice. "Is that you?" "I'm here, sweetheart." Simon gestured for her to come closer. She approached the stage hesitantly, and Simon helped her up the steps, a gesture so gentle it made half the audience start crying. "What's your name?" Simon asked her quietly. "Maria," she said, her voice barely audible. "Maria Martinez." "Maria, your son just told us about your diagnosis. Is that true?" Maria's face crumpled. She looked at Daniel, then at Simon, then back at her son. "He knows." Her voice broke completely. "Daniel, baby, you weren't supposed to know. I tried so hard to." "I heard you, Mama," Daniel said, tears streaming down his face. "I heard you crying." Maria walked to her son and wrapped her arms around him. They held each other under the stage lights while 3,000 people in the theater and millions watching from home witnessed a moment that transcended television. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this performance is still ahead. Simon stood watching them, his hands still in his pockets, his jaw tight. After a moment, he spoke again. "Daniel, you said you were going to sing your mother's favorite song. What song is that?" Daniel wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, still holding his mother. "It's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She used to sing it to me when I was little. Before I knew I was blind. She said it was about a place where everything is beautiful and nothing hurts." Simon nodded slowly. He looked at the band conductor in the wings. "Do you know that song?" The conductor nodded. "Then play it," Simon said. Then he did something he'd never done in 15 seasons of judging talent competitions. He climbed onto the stage himself. He walked to where Daniel and Maria stood, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a white handkerchief, pristine, folded, the kind of detail Simon Cowell was known for. He handed it to Maria. "For your tears," he said quietly. Then he looked at Daniel. "I want you to sing your song. For your mother. But I'm going to stay right here with you while you do it. Is that all right?" Daniel nodded, unable to speak. The music began. Soft. Gentle. The familiar melody of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, filling the massive theater. Daniel took a breath and began to sing. His voice was pure. Not perfect. He was 10 years old, untrained, singing through tears and fear and love, but it was honest. Real. Every note carried the weight of a child singing for a mother who might not have much time left. Simon stood beside him, one hand resting lightly on the boy's shoulder. Maria sat in a chair someone had brought onto the stage, the white handkerchief pressed to her face, sobbing. The judges at the desk were crying. Howie had his head in his hands. Heidi and Sophia held each other. The audience wept openly, thousands of strangers united in grief and love and the profound unfairness of a child losing his mother. When Daniel reached the final line, "Why, oh why can't I?" his voice broke completely. He couldn't finish. He just stood there, tears running down his face, his small body shaking. Simon knelt down beside him. He was eye level with the boy now, though Daniel couldn't see him. "Daniel," Simon said, his voice gentle in a way that would be replayed millions of times. "You said you didn't care if we said yes or no? But I need you to understand something." He took Daniel's hand in his own. "What you just did? That wasn't an audition. That was love. That was courage. That was everything this show is supposed to be about but usually isn't." He stood up and walked to the golden buzzer. He didn't ask the other judges. He didn't wait for anyone's permission. He just slammed his hand down on the button. Golden confetti exploded across the stage. The audience leaped to their feet, screaming, crying, applauding. Maria pulled Daniel into her arms again, both of them covered in golden confetti, both sobbing. Backstage, producers were begging him to continue. But he didn't. Simon walked back to the judge's desk, but he didn't sit down. He stood there, looking at the stage, at the mother and son holding each other under the lights and falling confetti. "Ladies and gentlemen," Simon said, addressing the audience directly, "I've been doing this for a very long time. I've pressed that golden buzzer for incredible talents. For singers who could fill stadiums. For acts that deserved fame." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "But I've never pressed it for something this important. Daniel didn't come here to become famous. He came here to give his mother a memory. And that," his voice cracked, "that is the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed on this stage." The audience erupted again. Simon finally sat down, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Simon Cowell, crying on camera, not even trying to hide it. But what happened next, no one in the theater, or watching at home, could ever forget. After the taping, Simon did something he'd never done before. He arranged for Maria to receive experimental cancer treatment at a private facility. He personally covered every expense. He didn't announce it. He didn't make it part of the show. He just did it. Daniel gave his mother a memory. Simon told his producers when they asked why. "I'm going to try to give him more time with her." Maria lived for 2 more years. Not forever. But 2 years where she got to see Daniel grow, hear him sing, hold him close. 2 years of borrowed time purchased by a moment of honesty on a stage. When Maria passed away in her sleep with Daniel holding her hand, she was at peace. And in her other hand, she clutched Simon's white handkerchief, the one he'd given her on stage. She'd kept it. Every single day. Share and subscribe, so this story will never be forgotten. Daniel is 15 now. He still sings. And every time he performs, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, he starts by saying, "This is for my mom. And for the man who let me give her one perfect memory." Simon never forgot that night either. It changed something in him. Made him remember that beneath the talent, beneath the spectacle, there are real people with real pain seeking real moments of grace. The golden buzzer isn't just about talent anymore. It's about truth. And a blind boy taught Simon Cowell that sometimes the bravest performance is simply being honest about why you're there.